Discovered by fate. How the Alpha King transformed the life of the rejected Omega girl at auction. Emma stood at the entrance of the hall, the buzzing excitement almost drowning her out. The glow of chandeliers illuminated the faces of her neighbors, their laughter echoing like a distant, taunting melody. She could already feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on her slim shoulders. As she swallowed hard, thick glasses perched atop her nose and hair shoved into a messy bun, Emma braced herself for another night as the outcast in this small Midwestern town. The annual auction event loomed before her, a desperate chance to reclaim her family's footing before disaster struck. "Do it for them," she whispered, glancing down at her worn dress, the fabric reminding her of days spent dreaming of larger worlds beyond the confines of their struggles. With every step, her heart raced faster, memories of being teased playing like a film reel in her mind. All she needed was one moment. One spark. The moment she climbed onto the auction block, the crowd turned. Eyes landed on her, scanning her in a way that felt both pitying and curious. The clinking of glasses ceased, replaced by a silence thick with disbelief. She could practically hear the whispers. "What's she doing here? She doesn't belong." But then Lucas walked in. He was everything she'd ever seen, a magnetic pull that eclipsed the room, handsome and confident, like a sun breaking the dawn. When he singled her out, a wave of astonished murmurs rippled through the audience. "I bid $1,000 for Emma's sewing skills." His voice cut through the weight of the moment, charging the air and sending a shockwave through the crowd. Fingers reached for their phones, ready to tweet about this unexpected twist, while some gasped. Emma's heart pounded. Lucas believed in her. Perhaps their worlds could collide in a way that transformed everything. She could be more than just the girl with the glasses. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Week after week, Lucas took Emma under his wing. Each morning brought new challenges and with them fresh hope. As she honed her sewing skills, something inside her began to unravel. The old Emma, the scared girl who felt invisible, reshaping into someone bold. But the townspeople saw the growing bond between her and Lucas as an affront to the status quo, and murmurs soon turned into loud proclamations. Why should an Alpha King waste time on a nobody? Someone sneered at the local diner, triggering an avalanche of hurtful gossip. But Emma held firm, even when her family faced a sudden medical crisis. With no one else to turn to, she found herself pleading with those who had scorned her, opening the floodgates between deep-rooted biases and buried humanity. At the town meeting, Emma stood, heart hammering against her chest. The crowd grew silent, tension heavy. With each word, she felt both their contempt and curiosity. Redefining belonging isn't just about status. It's about the choices we make in this shared life. Gasps wandered through the room. Emma faced the sea of faces, seeing the struggle mirrored in so many. But not everyone was ready to embrace change. A scoff echoed from the back. Faced with a divided crowd, Emma's voice wavered as it carried the weight of her heart. Would they open their minds or turn away? The silence hung, fraught with uncertainty. What would happen next? Emma felt the impact of her very existence on the brink of transformation, a singular breath away from hope or despair. The tension in the room felt palpable, like a tightrope strung high above the chasm of doubt. Emma searched the faces before her, desperately hoping to find a glimmer of understanding, a nod of empathy. But what greeted her were cold stares, furrowed brows, and a mix of skepticism and derision. Taking a deep breath, she pressed on, willing her voice to be steady, to resonate. Every one of us has felt like we don't belong at some point, she continued, the fervor rising within her. I've spent my life being told I wasn't good enough, but those words don't define who I am. They're just echoes of fear. A murmur rose from the crowd, disbelief rippling like a stone thrown into a pond. Emma caught Lucas's eye, and the warmth in his gaze ignited a fire in her spirit. This wasn't just about the auction or her family. It was about breaking through barriers that had defined their small town for far too long. For a moment, the air shifted. People seemed to lean in, searching for meaning in her words. hungering for a connection that transcended their judgments. But then a voice broke through the moment, sharp, contemptuous. "What would you know about struggle, Emma? You're only here because of him." Laughter echoed like a gunshot, sharp and painful, reaching into Emma's heart and squeezing tight. Each chuckle felt like a serrated edge, reminding her of her past, of those lonely days hiding behind the walls of her home. But instead of retreating, she stood taller, tightening her grip on the podium like a lighthouse keeper in a storm. "Maybe I don't know everything," she replied, making eye contact with the heckler. "But I see so many of you looking for something more, something better. I can't promise change will come easy. It takes all of us to shift this tide." Shockwaves rolled through the audience, some nodding in hesitant agreement, while others crossed their arms tighter, entrusting their defenses. Emma could see it. The fear, the uncertainty mingled with glimpses of hope. In that moment, Emma knew that vulnerability was a force of its own, strong enough to shatter the strongest barriers. As she stepped back from the microphone, a whisper of applause broke the tension, timid but growing. Lucas stood up, clapping slowly, his admiration radiating through the crowd. One by one, others joined, and soon a chorus filled the hall, a sound that signified not just support but the faintest hints of change. Overwhelming years of steady hesitance. But just as triumph washed over her, the door swung open. The figure that stepped through was familiar, yet exuded an air of authority that made people shrink back instinctively. It was the town mayor, flanked by a couple of familiar local businessmen. "What's this commotion?" the mayor barked, his eyes scanning the crowd with impatience. The applause faltered. The collective hope that had been so lovingly crafted now threatened to shatter under the impending confrontation. Emma's heart sank as she felt the ground beneath her slip. This was the moment the tide could turn, and she feared the worst. "Everyone, please," the mayor began with a tone that suggested he was about to dismiss everything Emma had stood for. "We need to put this misguidance to rest." Emma's stomach twisted, but she stood her ground. This was her moment to act, not just for her, but for everyone who had ever felt marginalized. "No," she exclaimed, the word a surge of electricity. "Change any misguidance. It's necessary." Would her voice break through the reputation of a town held tightly in the grip of the old ways? Could she convince her community to embrace a new dawn? The air hummed with tension, excitement, and the risk of everything slipping away. A stillness filled the room as all eyes turned toward the mayor, and the uncertain path of her future began to unfurl in Emma's mind. The mayor narrowed his eyes, contemplating Emma's daring outburst. "And what if I told you you're making a mistake?" he challenged, holding the weight of authority in his voice. Emma squared her shoulders, resolve replacing doubt. The crowd held its breath. Would she rise to the occasion? Would they unite as a community despite impending confrontation? As silence enveloped them, Emma wondered if she could really be the one to break through the chains that bound their hearts. If not, what would happen next? The mayor's words hung heavily in the air, an ominous cloud overshadowing Emma's fleeting victory. The room buzzed with murmurs, and a swell of anxiety washed over the audience. Emma felt her heart pound against her chest, each beat fueling her determination to stand firm. "Is it really a mistake to want more for ourselves?" she countered, her voice louder than before, tinged with urgency. "We've been bound by fear and doubt for too long. Isn't it time we take a leap of faith?" The mayor's expression flared with disdain, yet some in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. Emma spotted a few familiar faces, friends she had grown up with, who looked uncertain. She could feel the hands of doubt push against her resolve, but she let them go. This was her moment to help them tool their fear into action. "You say you want change, Emma? What does that even mean?" he scoffed, arms crossed, leaning into the scoffs of his followers. "It means rewriting the very fabric of our community, tearing it all down for what? A dream?" "Sometimes dreams are what keep us alive," Lucas interjected, rising to meet the mayor's gaze. He stepped forward, his unwavering support sending silent waves through the crowd. "What's the worth of a community that doesn't allow its members to flourish? Look around. Look at the faces here, all yearning for acceptance." The room seemed to breathe in unison, sensing a shift. Emma recognized the pulse of courage flowing through her, and in that moment, she took a decisive step towards the mayor, her voice imbued with fierce conviction. "Do you think we've forgotten where we came from? We've been sidelined in our own lives, afraid to step into the light, And that ends today. A wave of whispers erupted, half skepticism, half admiration, but Emma held her ground. She was no longer that frightened girl hiding in the shadows. She had found her voice, even when the world didn't want to hear it. You think this is all just a fantasy? The mayor shot back, his face flushed with anger. The real world is harsh. What do you think will happen if you fail? In failure lies growth, Emma replied instinctively, the words slipping out like a promise. I know we have the power to rise, to change our narrative. We can be the authors of our own story, not mere characters in someone else's. The crowd stirred again, their murmurs transforming into nods, glimmering hope igniting in their eyes. Emma could feel the energy shift, feel their hearts beginning to open. Even the mayor's scowl wavered for the briefest moment, as if he too was reconsidering everything he had held sacred. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor began, albeit begrudgingly, surely you cannot be swayed by this emotional outburst. But laughter rose from the crowd, a soft sound at first, then gaining strength as they united behind Emma. Let us be emotional then. Someone shouted, triggering more applause. Let us feel. Lucas grinned, pride evident in his eyes. What if we could set aside our fears? What if we could embrace our individual stories rather than hide them? The mayor's arrogance began fraying as he surveyed the once skeptical crowd, now emboldened by Emma's exuberance. What if their emotions could rally a movement? What if the tide had truly changed? As a renewed sense of unity filled the room, Emma felt a sudden warmth in her chest. Perhaps they could finally rewrite the narrative that had kept them imprisoned for too long. But just as she began to believe in the potential of victory, the mayor's face twisted into a mask of defiance once more. Do you really think this is going to be easy? He warned. How far are you willing to go to fight this fight? Are you ready for the consequences? The question hung ominously in the silence, a challenge that echoed in each heart present. Emma's stomach tightened, each word heavy with implications. Could they really face whatever dangers lay ahead? Would they have the courage to support one another through thick and thin? As she met the gaze of every face in the room, a new resolve kindled within her. She knew the stakes had never been higher, and the next moments could decide everything, not just for her, but for every single person searching for acceptance. In that fleeting silence, one truth ignited among all of them. They were ready to stay and fight. But the real question loomed: what would they face together next? As the silence stretched on, Emma glanced around the room, taking in the faces that mirrored her fears and hopes. Friends, neighbors, once nervous expressions were now filled with a flicker of determination. She felt the moment shift. The air buzzed with electricity, the kind that comes right before a storm. A storm of change. Every true victory has a price, Lucas said, stepping forward. His voice was calm but laced with urgency. Decide together what you're willing to sacrifice. We can confront the mayor, but we must be united. Emma nodded, her heart racing. Unity mattered now more than ever. What we seek isn't just ours. It's for everyone, everywhere, who feels like they don't belong. Emma called out, raising her arms as if to cradle the crowd's hopes. We can help our town thrive, more vibrant and welcoming than ever before. Her words hung in the air, igniting a spark. Slowly, one by one, people began to rise from their seats. They were no longer just observers, they were participants. Stars twinkled in their eyes, illuminating their commitment to fight for their dreams. The mayor's face contorted in disbelief. This is foolishness. He spat, trying to reclaim control of the room. You will regret this. Do you truly think you can do better? You're risking everything. A chorus of voices rose in resistance, proclaiming, yes, we can. Show us. Each affirmation enhanced the warmth spreading inside Emma's chest. The heart of the community pulsed louder, an anthem of courage echoing through the hall. And what will it take to bring our stories to life, Mayor? Someone shouted, voice steady. Will you allow us to share our truths without fear? Emma smiled, the kind of smile that felt like a fresh breeze on a summer's day. She set her eyes firmly on the mayor, whose bravado faltered as uncertainty etched itself deeper into his features. Will you actually stand in our way? Emma challenged, emboldened by the presence of her friends. Will you fight against us when we seek to build bridges instead of walls? We are tired of being sidelined like the forgotten pieces in a puzzle. We matter, and we're ready to fill in our own parts. A movement rippled through the audience. From the back, a man she recognized as Mr. Callahan, whose heart had always beat for community welfare, raised his fists, encouraging others to follow suit. "Let us take this head-on," he called out, steely resolve in his voice. "We deserve the space to dream. We deserve to be heard." Applause thundered, and the atmosphere crackled with energy. Emma felt exhilarated, carried by a wave of collective strength. She realized they were more than just a crowd, they were a family. "United, we can change the narrative," Emma proclaimed. The mantra was infectious. People began to chant it rhythmically, igniting a chant that resonated deep into their spirits. With every pulse of their voices, the mayor's authority dwindled. He glanced around in disbelief, the confidence in his posture collapsing. Emma took a step closer, her heart racing at how fragile this moment felt, like glass ready to shatter if they didn't hold on to it tightly. A sudden ruckus erupted outside. Emma turned, her stomach dropping as she caught sight of police cars edging towards the town hall, sirens wailing ominously, flashing red and blue lights. The fear creeping back was palpable, threatening to smother their resolve. "Do they mean to silence us?" someone asked, breaths quickening. Emma's heart raced. She knew now they had to stand firm no matter the consequences. This wasn't just about winning a fight, it was about survival, and they could be that change. "What's the worst they can do?" Emma shouted over the rising panic. "We must hold our ground. We will not be silenced." But as the officers approached, a new question loomed in the air. With the sound of heavy footsteps echoing in the hall, Emma wondered if their unity could withstand the threat of retaliation. Could they truly stand against the forces that sought to shatter their resolve? Or would this be the moment that defined everything they had fought for? The tension in the air crackled like static electricity. Emma's heart raced as she watched the officers stepping into the town hall, each one imposing in their uniforms. She could feel the cold grip of fear threatening to squeeze the life out of her confidence. But the rhythm of her heart matched the chants continuing in the room. "United, we can change the narrative." The officers exchanged glances, assessing the scene before them. Emma could see confusion mingling with their duty, and for a breath, it felt as if time had paused. This was the moment where everything could change, not just for her, but for everyone who had dared to dream. They were stepping into a space where their voices could echo like thunder or whisper like shadows, depending on how they chose to respond. Then, breaking through the chants, Lucas stepped forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We are not here to cause trouble," he proclaimed, his voice steady and resonant, cutting through the noise. "We're here to demand to be heard, to stand for ourselves and our community." A murmur erupted in the crowd, and Emma was aware of the mounting collective courage. She took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of determination surging through her. This was no longer just about standing against the mayor. This was a fight to reclaim their identities and assert their existence. One of the officers, a tall woman with a stern face, stepped closer to the group. "We're not here to silence you," she said, her voice firm but tempered with understanding. "But we need to know that your actions won't lead to violence or unrest. We have a duty to maintain order." "Order," Emma echoed, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried weight. "Order should not come at the cost of silencing those who seek justice. We are not your enemies. We're your neighbors, your friends." The officer paused, and for a split second, Emma could see a flicker of empathy in her eyes. Perhaps it was a shared experience of being outnumbered. Perhaps just the longing for connection. "Stories have power," the woman replied, quietly but with a growing strength. "Tell your stories. We want to listen, but you must promise to remain peaceful." Emma felt the air soften. It was an opening. She felt Lucas gently squeeze her shoulder, a reminder that they were in this together. "We promise," he said, his voice unwavering. "We will share what needs to be said without violence. We are here to awaken our community." With that, Emma stepped forward, allowing Lucas to take her hand. She looked around at the faces surrounding her, glimmering with hope, charged with purpose. "This isn't just about us standing here today. It's about everyone who has ever felt unheard, invisible. We are stronger together. And together, we will fight for a future where everyone belongs." The crowd erupted in cheers, echoing their unity. The police officers stood silently, visibly shifting their stance, as if the intensity of the moment had stirred something in them as they began to share their stories, voices rising and intertwining, Emma felt her own confidence swell. Each narrative filled the room with vibrancy, tearing down walls built by fear. But amid the thunderous applause, a deep unease settled in her gut. What would happen when the mayor found out they had allied with the officers? Would his wrath fall upon them all? Suddenly, Emma spotted a figure lurking in the far corner, an official with the mayor's emblem on their lapel, watching intently. A chill ran down her spine. Had they crossed the line? More importantly, what would be the consequences of this newfound alliance? The power of their voices had risen, but at what cost? Emma's pulse quickened as the figure took a step forward, and she knew that the next phase of their battle was looming just ahead. Would they be ready to face whatever storm was about to break? Would their identities hold firm in the face of potential reprisal? Emma's heart pounded in her chest as the figure moved closer. The whispers in the crowd turned into a low hum, an awareness settling over everyone like a thick fog. She could feel the gears of change shifting, heavy with anticipation and fear. Would this be the moment they regretted? The official stopped a few feet away, arms crossed, his sharp gaze sweeping across the gathered crowd, lingering on Emma and Lucas. He cleared his throat, drawing the collective breath of the room toward him. "I am here on behalf of the mayor," he announced, a calculated calm in his voice that sent shivers down Emma's spine. "You understand this isn't a game. Your actions, although passionate, have consequences." Emma's mind raced. "Consequences?" she repeated, her voice trembling with defiance. "We're not here to play games either. We're standing up for our rights." His eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment, Emma thought she saw a flicker of respect. The crowd shifted restlessly behind her, their confidence matching her words as they rallied to her side. She understood that they had transformed from individuals into a formidable force in that moment, but how would they endure the repercussions? The officer who had spoken earlier stepped forward, positioning herself as a bridge. "We're here to listen, not to escalate this situation," she interjected. "You all have every right to be heard. However, you must understand that our presence is also necessary to ensure that it remains peaceful." Emma took a step closer, the air thick with the charged energy of shared resolve. "What we are doing here is about truth. We're not looking for violence but for justice. If you truly want order, help us make sure everyone's voice counts." The official's hard expression softened, if only for a heartbeat. Emma could see the wheels turning in his mind, weighing the tension against the humanity in front of him. The crowd surged, a wave of energy washing over them, reinforcing their commitment. "Let us tell our stories," Lucas said, his voice steady as he stepped forward beside her. "Right now this is bigger than us. It's about the community. We deserve a chance to explain why we've reached this boiling point." More voices joined in, echoing with urgency, reinforcing Emma's unwavering spirit. Each narrative unfolded like a tapestry, vibrant threads entwining in a shared fight for acknowledgement. Emma watched as faces in the crowd lit up, their fears mingling with courage. But in the depths of Emma's heart, the specter of the mayor loomed large. He wouldn't take this lightly. She imagined his reaction, his contempt for anyone challenging his authority, and her stomach churned. The thrill of speaking out was paired with the weight of potential disaster. Suddenly a sharp voice cut through the crowd. "You're all going to regret this." It was a sneer from a familiar face, one of the mayor's loyal supporters, who emerged from the side, face twisted in anger. The tension snapped taut once again, silence falling like a heavy blanket over the crowd, everyone holding their breath. Emma's heart sank. This was the reckoning she feared. She met Lucas's gaze, seeing the determination reflected in his eyes. They had ignited a spark, but now they had attracted the flames, and the reality of their situation crashed down upon her. Could they hold on to their bravery when the storm finally swept in? Would unyielding voices be enough to withstand the rush of opposition they were sure to face? Emma steadied herself, knowing that what came next would define them all. And then, as whispers of fear turned into murmurs of support, she knew they were standing on the precipice of something seismic. Would they rise or fall together? With that sense of trepidation hanging in the air, she felt the urgency call for more than words. The moment of action was beckoning, and she could feel the energy shift, ready for whatever came next. Would they withstand the blow that the mayor would inevitably strike? The answer felt just out of reach, hovering in the air, waiting to be seized. The crowd's silence stretched like a rubber band, taut and ready to snap. Emma could sense the tension simmering just beneath the surface, a collective heartbeat that echoed her own. Her thoughts raced, trying to map out the next steps, but the sneer of the mayor's supporter, a shadow in the light they had fought to shine, loomed larger than ever. "Regret," she finally replied, her voice sharper now, fueled by a mix of fear and defiance. "You're the only one trying to intimidate us here. We have every reason to stand up for ourselves and speak our truth." Lucas stepped forward again, interlacing his fingers with Emma's. Their hands clasped tightly felt like a lifeline. "What do you really lose by listening to us?" he asked the crowd, lifting his chin with fierce conviction. "If you can't handle the truth, that's a problem for your leader, not us." A ripple of murmurs gathered momentum within the audience, a chorus of agreement bubbling up like a spring after the thaw. They were holding on to something real, hope, perhaps, or maybe just the need for recognition. Emma felt it resonate in her bones, a gentle thrum that countered the fear threatening to paralyze her. The official's expression wavered again. "Peaceful dialogue matters now more than ever," the officer who had intervened said, her tone low but unwavering. "Show them you're not just fighters but friends, neighbors, and a community." A few in the crowd began to share their stories, voices rising from the unrest. One woman spoke of her family struggles, her words thick with emotion. "We're tired of feeling invisible." Another echoed. Names and faces came alive within the momentum, as narratives intertwined and painted the harsh realities they faced. Emma's heart swelled, yet danger lingered in the air like smoke. Each voice added another weight of responsibility to her shoulders. She felt the hot stir of adrenaline, mixing excitement with trepidation, realizing how powerful their collective stories could become. Suddenly, a shoving motion disrupted the moment. The same supporter who had threatened them surged forward, rallying his own group behind him. "What you're doing is futile. You really think a bunch of stories can topple the mayor?" he shouted, a sneer plastered across his face. His voice crackled with the desperation of a cornered animal. That challenging outburst yanked the crowd's breath away. But Emma didn't falter. She could feel Lucas's grip steadying her, and a spark ignited deep inside. "Our stories are our power," she shouted back, louder now, letting her pulse guide her. "If we don't stand together, we stand for nothing. Fear only has power if we allow it." The crowd around her began to respond. "No more silence," someone yelled, breaking the barrier of doubt. Hope filled her lungs like fresh air. A chant emerged, echoing back at the mayor's supporter and washing over the group like an anthem of unwavering resolve. "We stand, we fight, together for what's right." Emma's heart raced as their voices harmonized, blending into a fervent roar. They were no longer afraid. They were fierce and whole. But just as the energy peaked, a siren blared in the distance, a reminder that the stakes were rising. Emma's blood ran cold. She glanced at Lucas, whose eyes were wide with realization. The moment of calm before the storm had arrived. But would they push forward into the unknown or back down in the face of impending chaos? As the sirens grew closer, Emma knew one thing: the mayor's shadows were lurking, and whether they could claim their own voices or be silenced depended on what they dared to face next. Would they bend to fear, or would this be the fight of their lives? The sirens grew louder, slicing through the air like a knife. Emma felt her body tense, every instinct screaming at her to prepare for the worst. She could sense Lucas beside her, his grip tightening as if he could siphon away her fear. The crowd swelled around them, a mass of eager faces set against the encroaching threat, a unity forming in the face of chaos. "It's all right," Lucas whispered, but his voice held a trace of uncertainty. Emma nodded, but doubt crammed its way into her mind. How could they truly stand against the forces determined to silence them? As the squad cars turned the corner, bright lights flashed like stars in a dark sky. They illuminated the determined faces of their neighbors, some lined with worry, others sparked with defiance. Emma locked eyes with a woman at the front, a single mother she had seen around town, juggling her children and her job. An unspoken understanding passed between them, galvanizing Emma's resolve. "Maybe stories 1 topple the mayor," Emma shouted as she took a step forward, feeling buoyed by the crowd's escalating energy. "But they can change hearts. They can wake this town up to its own strength." Her voice cracked with passion, each syllable punctuating her growing belief. The mayor's supporter sneered, his confidence shaken by the crowd's ferocity. Good luck with that, he spit, his bravado faltering under the weight of their collective stand. He turned to the officers, raising his hands. Do your jobs. They're out of control. The officer who had spoken before stepped forward, her eyes icy yet flickering with respect for the galvanizing spirit of the crowd. You can't stifle their voices, she said firmly. Communities can't be ignored forever. With every heartbeat, the realization of how tenuous their situation was settled heavily on Emma. This wasn't just about their fight, but about every silent struggle that had been pushed aside for too long. People around her began chanting again, louder now, their voices weaving together into an anthem that filled the air with vibrancy and life. No more silence. Unity, not division. But as the chants rose in fervor, the sound of footsteps cut through. Officers began to line up, some with expressions of duty but others still showing a flicker of empathy. Emma caught a glimpse of their apprehensive faces. This wasn't just them against the cops. This was everything they had been through, layered onto every word they shouted. She faced the crowd, breathless with adrenaline. We're not fighting against you. We're fighting for change. For community. The words burst from her, a raw invitation to join them rather than divide. New voices emerged, fueled by shared stories of struggle, hardship but also triumph. Each word stitched together a quilt of resilience that even the sirens could not drown out. One by one, people stepped forward, sharing their hopes, fears, and experiences, creating a mosaic of humanity that was impossible to ignore. But just as they seemed to be gaining ground, the mayor's supporter barked out orders to the officers, drawing them closer. Don't let them distract you. Disperse this crowd. Emma's heart pounded wildly. An electric moment crackled through the air. They were standing at the edge of something monumental. We're not afraid. We're not going anywhere, she shouted, daring the world to challenge their resolve. As the gusts of anticipation swept through the crowd, Emma glimpsed Lucas beside her, a spark of determination igniting in his eyes. But then they heard a strange sound, a deep rumbling that morphed into a chilling roar. And from behind the squad cars, a line of reinforcements appeared, ready to enforce the mayor's will. Emma felt her stomach drop. The gathering wasn't over yet. Dread loomed in their faces as connections were made. Would they fight back? Or would fear win? Emma's voice rang out again, but this time it felt different. It felt like the last ember of a dying flame. What if they truly had run out of time? As tension surged again, pulling everyone taut, she felt the weight of fate resting in her hands. Would she have a chance to rewrite their narrative, or was this the moment they would be dimmed forever? The line of officers stood firm, shields raised, their faces masked by a combination of resolve and apprehension. Each breath Emma took felt heavier, weighted with the dread of what could come next. The crowd felt it too. The collective heartbeat of a community on the brink was unmistakable. Remember why we're here, Emma shouted, her voice slicing through the tension. We are more than just names on a list. We are families, we are hopes, we are dreams that deserve to be heard. The chant shifted. Stand together. Stand together. The words danced through the gathering like fire, igniting the hearts of those who dared to imagine change. Emma caught a glimmer of courage among faces familiar and new. It was enough to fuel her urgency. Don't let them intimidate you. A voice rang out. It was the woman from earlier, the single mother. Her eyes burned with fire as she stepped forward. We've been silenced for too long, and if they think they can drown us out, they're dead wrong. A ripple of agreement followed her words, swelling louder, echoing on the walls of the narrow street. Emma felt the resolve rise like tidal waves behind her. She glanced at Lucas, who nodded, and she realized that fear might be present, but it would not dictate their actions yet. Just as the crowd gathered strength, the mayor's supporter pressed closer to the officers, his face twisting with desperation. Don't let this rabble take control. He waved a hand and the officers shifted, positioning themselves like a barrier ready to strike. But Emma wasn't about to back down. We're not rabble, she cried, the urgency boiling within her. We're your neighbors. Your friends. We're here to stand for justice, for fairness, and for our community. It felt as though each declaration etched into the very fabric of that moment, demanding to be acknowledged. The ground shook as more reinforcements arrived, their uniforms glinting under the overhead lights. Emma's heart raced. Panic threatened to bubble up, but she pressed it down. It was not just her fight. It was a fight for everyone who had been pushed aside. "What do we want?" she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "Change," they roared back, the sound vibrating through the asphalt beneath their feet. "When do we want it?" Now. With every repetition they formed a pulse of unity, a heartbeat that resonated with the longing for a better tomorrow. Emma closed her eyes for a second, drinking in the collective energy, marching toward a future they could build together. In that moment she felt invincible, like nothing could stop them. Then the sirens escalated, cutting through the warmth of their uprising. She opened her eyes to see a line of officers stepping forward. Lucas moved closer, his hand finding hers once more. "What now?" he whispered, fear lacing his voice. Emma took a deep breath. "We stand firm. We keep fighting. We let them see us truly see us." The tension in the air shimmered palpable and thick. Each heartbeat echoed the question that hung between them. Would they have the courage to hold their ground? And then, just as the officers advanced, a single voice broke through the air, filled with both fear and strength. "They can't silence us forever." Every head turned to see who uttered those words. Emma's heart raced. Would they find their voice? Or would this moment shatter against overwhelming authority? The stakes had never been higher, and every soul there felt the precipice beneath their feet. As the reinforcements closed in, Emma felt the ground tremble not just beneath them, but within her, awakening something fierce and beautiful. They would not yield. Not now, but as she gripped Lucas's hand tighter, a thought gnawed at her. What would it take to truly be heard? The answer could change everything. The moment hung in suspense as Emma felt the weight of gazes on her, the fear and hope perfectly balanced. She drew a deep breath, grounding herself, acutely aware that she stood not just for her story, but for everyone who had ever felt unheard. "We're not backing down," she cried, her voice ringing out with fierce conviction, cutting through the chaos like a knife. As the officers moved forward, Lucas stepped closer, eyes steady and determined. "They don't understand our strength," he said quietly in her ear, a measure of comfort against the palpable tension. "We need to show them." And she knew he was right. "Together we're stronger," Emma shouted to her growing crowd, her heart racing alongside the passion surging inside. "These aren't just our voices, they're our lives. The lives of our neighbors, our friends. We'll keep standing until we're heard." The crowd erupted behind her, a tidal wave of voices rising in solidarity. "We are our stories." The chant grew, a symphony of unity that filled the air, wrapping around them like a shield. "We are our stories." The police officers hesitated, glancing at each other as if questioning their orders. Emma could sense a fracture forming in the facade of authority. The barrier between fear and inspiration was beginning to dissolve, and she seized the moment. "Look around," Emma urged, gesturing to the passionate faces that lit up with newfound resolve. "You're not just here to enforce the mayor's will. You're part of this community too. You have the power to listen and stand with us or remain in the shadows." With that, silence wrapped around them, the kind that settles just before everything changes. One of the officers, a tall man with a strong jaw and kind eyes, shifted his position slightly, revealing a crack in his previously unwavering stance. Then the mayor's supporter sneered again, his voice dripping with derision. "You all are foolish. You'll regret this rebellion." But his words hung weakly in the air, struggling against the weight of the collective strength building around them. "No," shouted a voice from within the crowd. "This is our moment." A ripple of agreement passed through the gathering like a spark igniting a fire that refused to be extinguished. Feeling the swell of the moment, Emma stepped forward again. "You might not understand now," she said passionately, "but fear never builds a strong community. Only love and acceptance does." In that instant, the officer who had initially taken a step back felt their humanity reflected in Emma's eyes. "No more fear," he said, his voice resounding with authority. "You're right. If we don't do something, we're just perpetuating a cycle of fear, unease, and silence." A wave of gasps swept through the crowd, and Lucas squeezed her hand, pride shining brightly. The officer took a step closer, slowly lowering his shield. "I'm with you. Let us talk." As he spoke, Emma felt the shift in the room, the dawning realization spreading like dawn chasing away the night. Others in uniforms took small steps forward too, trading glances hesitant yet emboldened to join a conversation instead of holding a line. Suddenly, Emma watched as the townspeople began to take action, one person stepping up to share their story. "I was afraid to speak, but my child deserves so much more," cried the woman from earlier, her voice shaking with sincerity. The crowd rallied, courage fueling each person as more began to find their voice, sharing life tales that interlaced with pain, laughter, and unwavering hope. For every voice that rose, Emma felt the mounting strength. A cherished community weaving together what had once felt unimaginable. They stood not just against the mayor, but for each other, for every dream that had flickered beneath silenced hopes. As her own heart raced at the bravery around her, Emma felt the truth of the moment sink in. Change was born from vulnerability, and they were all stronger together. Then before her, the mayor's supporter stepped back, his bravado faltering. "They'll regret this," he stammered as officers still tied to the mayor's stance remained conflicted, visibly reconsidering their place. But it was too late. Emma's voice filled the room as she echoed, "We will not be silenced. Our stories matter." The rallying cry surged once more, overwhelming fear with a tide of hope. "We will not back down. Together, we'll build a community where every pain and triumph is honored." Amid the chants and raucous energy of unity, someone turned to the officer. "Join us." Others urged, pleading to be acknowledged, veering closer to the very officers who were supposed to be their adversaries. The air filled with the noise of acceptance. Hearts began to soften, seeking connection rather than division. Then the police officers collectively lowered their shields, a wave of solidarity washing over them. The absolute silence echoed loudly. Then a spark broke through, and Emma felt it, the unmistakable sound of applause, slow at first, then building into a crescendo that swelled around them. Townsfolk joined in as officers caught the rhythms of change, and Emma found herself choked with emotion, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. Amid the applause, the officers stepped forward, no longer standing as an immovable barrier. They began to mingle within the crowd, holding hands with those they had sworn to protect but who they had hesitated to see. "Together we rise," the voices echoed, knitting into a unified chorus that filled the night sky. As she glanced up to Lucas, they both felt it, the exhilarating, intoxicating sense of transformation. Their community was changing. They were living proof that courage could redefine everything. And in that dawning moment, as light spilled through the heavy veil of the past, Emma understood. They had crossed a threshold where darkness could no longer chase away the brightness of hope. "Change has always been within us," she whispered to Lucas, her heart full and smile bright, reflecting the possibilities ahead. "This is just the beginning." As they embraced, the world around them shook with potential, and she rejoiced in knowing that more than stories had been shared. Their vibrant future was finally taking root. Don't wait for another moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that could inspire your journey. Like now to fuel the algorithm and show your support for this transformational tale. Comment below to share your reactions and feelings about this beautiful ending. We need to know what you think. And don't hesitate to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to catch this tidal wave of change. Everything you do matters. You need to join us in lifting each other higher.